Guys, I am done with Disney, and you should be too. Give me just a few minutes to explain why. You already know what's going on. You keep hearing about the scandals and the outright sexual agenda, etc. And so, I'm taking a stand on that myself. And so, with this new Buzz Lightyear, there's supposed to be some kind of homosexual scene in it. And so, we've just said no more for our children, no more confusion, no more innuendos, etc. We've seen the old footage where things might be sexual, etc. And so we're just not going to go forward with Disney. But you can't go backwards either. Let me see if I can explain to you. Several nights ago, one of my daughters wanted to watch a movie, and she picked out the 1978 Peter Pan. I think it's 1978. And I was like, man, back to the good old days of Disney, back to the safe era, back before all this, pro-sexuality, possible pedophilia junk and garbage that's going on. Maybe we could just go back and just relax as a family and watch this old school Peter Pan. I'm going to tell you, I was shocked at how much sexual garbage was packed into that movie. I was paying attention and even missed some things that I saw today as I was researching it. And I was like, I didn't even see that. So how much garbage was in it and has been in it from the beginning? If Peter Pan was sexually explicit and had some innuendos in it back then that's been the undercurrent the whole entire time. Let me see if I can clear this up for you, because some of you are surely like, no, there is no way the old school Peter Pan had anything suggestive in it. Let me back up all the way to my childhood. I remember when I was about 5 years old, we got some Disney books in, and my parents were kind of a little unsure about letting me see one. And anyway, so I'm flipping through it, and we run into a problem. And the problem was that women are supposed to have clothes on. Throughout history, women wear clothing and they cover their legs, but Tinkerbell, because she's a fairy, doesn't really have to cover her legs. And so it's kind of is it a gray zone? Tinkerbell, she's feminine, but she's a fairy, so is she really a woman? Or, does she have to cover her legs? And I don't remember the exact conversation between me and my parents, but they were, teaching me that we were Christian, and I had accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and that we shouldn't put evil things in front of our eyes. We shouldn't be lusting over women, so I shouldn't look at her legs. But, since it's a cartoon character, like, you can look through the books, but, don't, focus on her legs. Well, so that was a little confusing for me then. But even looking back now, I think this is absolutely a display of a woman, and we shouldn't be staring at her legs at all. And during the early stages of the movie, everywhere that Tinkerbell flipped around, her underwear shows. It's constant. It is incredibly constant, and sometimes it's really provocative. And there's one scene where she is trying to get out of a locked box, and her hips get stuck, and so she repeatedly tries to get out of this locked box with a repetitive fashion. And so I know a lot of people are like, well, kids are going to be too young to understand that might even look like such and such. But men are not. And the way garbage-minded men work, and since mankind is garbage-minded, a lot of men would know that this is representative of a sexual act. And who wants to be thinking about a sexual act while they are watching television with their kids? Or who wants their kids to see something that's mimicking a sexual act, unless it's just an absolute pervert that is creating this garbage? Well, so that was a scene. A little later, there was and I can't recall all of it. I fell asleep about halfway through it, and I was like, maybe the kids are too innocent, and maybe I should have drew a stronger boundary line there. But I was like, maybe my kids are, innocent-minded enough, they're not seeing any of this. But on the map, there is a map, and the mermaid, who is tiny on the screen, but she has a nipple. It is just absolutely blatantly obvious that a mermaid with no top, it might just be a mark on the map, it might just be a dot on the screen, but her nipple is exposed. Well, not just that. There's another part in the movie where Peter Pan says, "Stay here, Wendy, and watch this." And he jumps over her head. And his loincloth kind of flaps upwards as he's going over her head. And there, in a cartoon, in a two-dimensional cartoon, there's nothing wrong with one character jumping over another. But the way it's set up, it's situationally set up, it's like he jumps over her head, he spreads his legs, and then as she looks at him, then she looks back at the screen like, like she's all surprised at whatever it was that she could have possibly seen being face to face with Peter Pan's masculinity. Well, all this has even caused me to think, why the name Peter Pan? Why? I wonder. In the sword fighting scene, Captain Hook is fighting with his sword, and we're talking about a 1978 movie that's supposed to be clean and should be, family friendly. Was it? Is it? And so as Captain Hook is sword fighting, he's got both hands on his sword, and at one point, as he's swinging, his hands are directly in front of his manhood, and there's this huge pause and delay as Peter Pan stands on his sword, and there's this huge bending of the sword, and then there's this spring while Captain Hook is, holding his sword with, his hook hand and his other hand. It was just overwhelming. There's another scene. You could think I'm looking for these, but go try it yourself. Don't even waste your time. It's there. There's a scene where Captain Hook is getting his face shaved, and as he leans back, and the guy there's a duck or a pigeon or a stork or some kind of bird that falls on his face, and so I can't remember, Captain Schmeed, I think it is standing there, and he starts to shave the back end of the duck's butt. But if you really pay attention, the duck's butt, his rear end, begins to look a whole lot like the masculine region of a man. And why would you draw the masculine region of a man? I'm talking about the whole ball of wax. Man, it's been shaved, the whole thing is sitting on a man's face. Well, anyway, then when the bird takes off, Schmeed looks around for Captain Hook's head and stares under the blanket that's over Captain Hook in his crotch area. Like, what is going on with this garbage? At another point, Captain Schmeed is walking around and he says, "All hands on deck, all hands on deck." And I knew at that point I should really listen and try to be discerning. And at the end, it doesn't sound like "all hands on deck." It begins to sound a lot like something else. But they increase the background noise and, blah, blah, blah. I am certain there was more than this in there. But here's the point I want to get across to you. Satan wants to sexually exploit your children. And sexual innuendos are not okay. If you took your kids to a Sunday school class and the teacher was teaching Sunday school class or Bible, and he's up there teaching, and he started making sexual innuendos in the class, you'd have him thrown out of the church building. If your kids were in school and a teacher there was teaching, supposedly just generic stale information to your children and was making sexual innuendos, you'd have them thrown out. But no, as long as it's on a TV screen, it's okay for sexual innuendos to flood into the lives of our children and for us to not take any further stance about it. I told you at the beginning, I'm done with Disney. Disney will not be getting any more of my dollars. I don't think they should get any more of yours. If you have Disney stock, you should sell it. You should not go to Disney World for vacation. When are you going to draw some lines in the sand and protect your children? Now, some of you are like, well, this ain't a big deal. For those of you that don't think it's a big deal, I want to know how much pornography you are watching. How much sexuality and sensuality are you indulging yourself in that you think it's okay for your kids to begin to be submerged in this garbage? Guys, We need to do everything we can to fight corruption in this age. And it would sure help you to know that Disney's not changing courses. They have been on this course for a long time, and it's intentional. When asked about it, I can't remember exactly. I might have been Huffington Post, might have posted something about this, but they were like, when we asked some of the storyboard artists about it, they were like, Disney's kind of been doing this for a long time, sneaking stuff in. There's kind of like a joke for adults. It's something for the adults to do while the kids... Really? Do the adults need something to do? Like, I'd say most adults, there are some adults that will commit time to watching the movie with their kids. Most of the time, we just let the kids run rampant with the monster vision or movies and videos unattended, and we never stop to explain anything to them. We don't draw any lines or any boundaries, and we just let them get soaked and saturated in the things of the world. If you don't think Satan has a plan for your children and that he's smarter than you when it comes to brainwashing or deceiving people, then you're not really paying attention and you're deceived yourself. Guys, we need to take a strong stance against Disney, and you need to know that the rooted foundation of this has reached back forever. And it's time for Christians to be done with this industry.